Today we're going to talk all things bow control, specifically these three things. What's up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. My name's Corey. I know I have not been here for so long, but we are back and I'm very excited to be making videos again. I went through a whole bunch of comments because I wanted to see what you guys were asking me and what were the main concerns that you guys were having. And I kept seeing a lot of bow control questions, like shaky bow, how to have a straight bow, how to play on one string. So literally those three things are what we're going to talk about today. And so we're going to start with the first thing being how to have a straight bow. The first thing I want you to do is I want you to put your violin down. So now that you have your bow, you're going to flip it around so that the stick is going to be touching your shoulder and not the bow hair, especially with rosin. You don't want that touching, your clothes, your shoulder, or whatever. So we're just going to flip our bow around. We're going to pretend like we kind of have a bow hold-ish while staying away from the bow hair. And then I want you to look and see when you do this, I want you to see the box that you have here. I'm actually gonna back up the camera just a tiny bit so you can see a little bit better. Sorry, it's kind of close. Oh, much better. Okay, so now you can see the box that we have here. We're calling this a box, this whole thing right here, okay? Now, when you move your bow down, I want you to notice where it comes from in your arm. So I'm gonna start just moving my arm. And if you look, it's going to primarily be coming from my elbow. If you look, my shoulder is actually not moving at all. Do you see that? Try that and see what moves the most. So this is the main issue that I see, is as soon as you go and play it on your violin, we get so many people running, using all their shoulder when you actually should just be using your elbow. Grab your violin, try that same exact thing. Don't go on a run and use your shoulder to move your bow, because your bow, oh gosh, it's gonna be doing wacko things. So we're gonna put it here. Again, think of where that box is. And now just move from the elbow. And just move it just tiny bits. Like, don't move it a ton. Just keeping it straight. You see a difference already. So kind of what happens is when you're here, the only time you're gonna be using your shoulder is a little bit here when you're at the tip. That's about it. So if we start here at the frog, the first thing that's gonna happen is your elbow is going to open, not your shoulder, your elbow. So from here, start here, your elbow is going to open. Elbow's opening, elbow's opening, elbow's opening. Maybe the shoulder moves a tiny bit now. And now my shoulder is going to be the one that's moving. Did you see it move? And it didn't go like this, it moved forward slightly, actually. That's how you're gonna have a straight bow. Think about keeping your bow in front of your body, not letting it go to the side, keeping it right here in front and moving from your elbow primarily. Okay, now that you have a straight bow, let's talk about how to play on one string at a time. So this is something that you have to figure out on your violin, is how to balance your bow to stay on one string and not hit all the others. And this might be something that you take small little chunks of your bow. So maybe you start with like an inch or two of bow and seeing if you can play right there on one string. That's why, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Suzuki method, but like way back in the beginning when I was learning, the first thing I learned was pepperoni pizza. This rhythm, pepperoni pizza. And the reason you learn pepperoni pizza first is because it's short little strokes and you're able to figure out the bow control in a small little section. The next thing that happens is you start to do longer and longer bow strokes, but you've already mastered the feel of where your A is compared to your E or your D or G, obviously. So that's why I would recommend starting with small little chunks of bow, and maybe you actually practice this pepperoni pizza. Maybe that would be very helpful for you. Just small little bows, staying on only the A, and then opening up from there and trying to do bigger and bigger bow strokes. Believe it or not, there's actually so much more space between the strings than you probably even know. So I'm gonna rock back and forth on the A and stay on the A. Watch this. Do you see how much my bow is moving? Do you see how much space there is though? There's so much space actually that you have to move your bow. So don't be afraid that it has to be in this exact one spot every single time. You have space to move, so don't be afraid of it. But just figure it out in small sections where that is, what that balance feels like for your arm, and then move on to the other strings from there. Let's just do a really practical exercise to practice this. Let's say you choose to do pepperoni pizza. We're gonna do A, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, A. Super basic, on the A with pepperoni pizza on each one. A, then 1, then 2, then 3, back down 2, 1, and back to open. See how that went? Did you get it? If you got it, let's move on and let's go a little bit faster. Maybe you do apple and use bigger strokes like that. Now let's do that whole thing again. Apple, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, open. Now maybe you're like, I think I've got this. Let's try more bow. Now let's just do 1 bow stroke on each. A, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, open. Do you see how I slowly started us using more and more bow each time? We didn't go, okay, the whole bow has to get the whole thing. We started really small and then we make it bigger and bigger. And this might be something maybe for a week. You go, hey, I'm gonna play really small. And I know you're like, oh my gosh, a whole week? Yes, a whole week, okay? You'll be fine. And then you're gonna make it bigger the next week, and then bigger the next week, until you're finally able to see where that balancing is. Change strings. I might need to do a whole video on like how to balance your bow on one string, because I feel like I have like so much more to talk about, but that's the basics of it, okay? If you have more questions, put them down in the comments. I would love to chat with you there. The last and the final thing we're gonna talk about is a shaky bow. This one is a little bit less straightforward because everybody is different and there could be different reasons that your bow is shaky. The first thing being that I have noticed is if you have a very cheap bow, like a student model bow, like a very cheap student model bow that just like came with your violin and you're like, this is my bow now, that might be the issue. So I had one student that came to me and he was an older student trying to learn, and his main problem was he could not figure out how to make his bow stop shaking, and he was just like, I don't even know anymore, like what do I do? And I handed him my bow. I said, just try playing with my bow. And he tried. It was instantly fixed. He had 0 issues. The shakiness all completely went away. And that was the only problem, was that his bow was just really, really crappy. So it might be that. So that's the first thing I would say. If your bow is shaky, is just check out what kind of bow you have. If it's a really cheap student model bow, there is a high possibility it is your bow. So if you have the option of being able to go to a music store and test out some bows, go for it. You could even go to the music store, or your teacher can help you too. Go to your music store and ask and say, hey, this is my issue. Do you have any bows that you think would be better? And they could probably help you try some bows. They could probably recommend something to you. So I would try something like that. Me personally, I love the Coda Prodigy bow. The Coda Bow Prodigy model. It's their lowest, it's their student model, but it is an incredible student model bow. So if you're having that issue, I would recommend just starting there and trying one. Another thing I always do is I love a carbon fiber bow, and I think I like it for this reason, because every time I use a wood bow, I have an issue with my bow shaking. So try just some different kinds of bows. Don't be afraid to try a carbon fiber bow. Vice versa, it might be the carbon fiber bow issue. Everybody's different. So let's just keep troubleshooting what the issue could be for a shaky bow, because there's so many options. But maybe it's that you don't have a very strong or good bow hold. So what could be happening is, for instance, the first thing is maybe that your pinky is not curving on top of the bow. Do you see how mine makes a perfect curve? Almost like there's like a little, I think my teacher used to say a little mouse can like run through there, right? Because there's a perfect circle for him. If your pinky is laying down like this, he is probably the problem. Like 100% he is the problem, because your pinky is the most important finger on your bow, besides your thumb. He's the most important finger on your bow, and he's doing nothing. He's sleeping on the job, essentially. Woo! I actually made a video, it was one of my last videos I made, about how to strengthen your pinky, and I would go and watch that one. I'll link it down below, but I would go and watch that about how to strengthen your pinky and make him a lot stronger, because he's extremely, extremely important. So stand your pinky up, make sure he's standing literally on the very top. I've heard that it helps too if you have like, if you look at the octagons, if you place it on like just this side, it helps. I put mine directly on the top. That's just the way I prefer. But if he keeps slipping, try placing him just on the your side of the octagon and see if that's helpful. Another thing is your thumb needs a thumb bump. So if you look here, my thumb is bent, and then he goes right here and sits like that. So those two things are kind of the two things I see on 90% of the bow holds that are the issue. Another thing is your wrist really high? This is tension right here. Tension is going to cause your bow to shake. Make sure he's loose and he's down. So your whole arm should be flat all the way from your fingers to your elbow. Actually, all the way to your shoulder, but you know what? You know what I mean. Keeping it nice and flat. As soon as you see this, there's tension. So bring it down, relax those fingers, make sure they're loose and they're ready to move. Ooh, so pretty. When you grab your violin and you're playing, I want you to do exactly what we were talking about with playing on one string, is to do small bows. Rather than long bows, we don't need to conquer the whole thing. Let's get a small section of the bow, really, really good, nail that, and then move to bigger and bigger sections. So you could probably do the exact same exercise I just talked about, how to play on one string and do that pepperoni pizza. How's your shakiness? Is it shaky? Is it not? What's happening? Try a little bit bigger. Then go bigger. How's that? And go and just see like where it is. There's also a possibility it's certain points in your bow. So this is the last thing I'll talk about on this issue because I know I'm talking about it a lot. We're troubleshooting together here. I'm trying to just help and give a lot of different answers that it could be just to help you. The last thing is that your bow needs to have a transfer of weight as you play. So the first thing that happens is when you're here at the frog, your pinky needs to be doing 99% of the work, okay? So remember how we talked about that he needs to be curved, he needs to be standing up, and he needs to be actually participating on the bow. So he's standing here, and he's going to be the one holding the weight of the bow. If I take my pinky off, the bow is falling, okay? That's just what's gonna happen. So my pinky is holding the bow, and when I get to about balance point, it's going to be transferring to my first finger. Oh, like through the hand. This is something that you're not even gonna see happen, but I want you to know it's happening. You start on the pinky, transfer the weight to the first finger. Now the first finger is here. As you come to the frog, transfer the weight back to your pinky. Does that make sense? So it's like as you're playing, you're transferring the weight this way and then back down this way. Never take your pinky off the bow though. Even though when you're here at the tip, he's not necessarily needed. You could take him off. Don't do that. He still has a job to do. He needs to stay in place because even when you're here at the tip, even though your first finger is doing 99% of the work, he still needs to be there ready. Well, you guys, I hope this was helpful. I hope if you're dealing with one of those issues that we were able to kind of troubleshoot together and figure out what that issue could be and you were able to fix it. If not, will you please let me know in the comments any other questions you have? I'm always happy to have a little chat in there, or send me a message or anything. I'm more than happy to help you out as much as I possibly can online. Well, that's all I have for today, you guys. I will see you next time. Bye.